When he was about 30, John Howard went to Portugal on a ship called the Hanover. The Hanover was captured by French privateers, and he was imprisoned and treated cruelly. He was exchanged for a French officer, and as soon as he was free, he went to London to the Commissioners of Sick and Wounded Seamen to seek help for his fellow captives. Some people have pointed to this incident as being the seed of his work in prison reform, for which he is known today. John Howard was born on the 2nd of September in 1726 in North London, son of John and Anne. His father was very religious, a wealthy upholsterer working in Spitalfields. His mother died when he was 5, and he was sent to live on his father's country estate at Cardington and sent to school in Hertford. When he was 16, his father died and he inherited the estate. John was a very serious young man, quiet, not very well suited to the life of an English aristocrat. Nevertheless, he went on the Grand Tour, and when he came back, he was very ill. He was staying in rented accommodation in North London, and his landlady, Sarah Yarwood, nursed him back to health. They married, despite the fact that she was 30 years his senior, and sadly, within 3 years, she had died. His contemporaries saw it as another example of his eccentricity. The psychiatrist Philip Lucas and the mathematician Ian Mackenzie James have both suggested that he was on the Asperger's spectrum. What is true is that with his heightened sense of good and evil, right and wrong, he felt compelled to act in response to the world he saw around him. When he was back from Portugal, he settled on his 200-acre Cardington estate and became friends with Samuel Whitbread, a fellow landowner, and between them they improved their estates and improved the life of their tenants. A later survey revealed that John Howard had been paying for the education of 23 local children. In 1756 he married Henrietta Leeds. She was of ill health and she died after 7 years. Their son, John, born just a week before Henrietta died, was sent to boarding school very young, and at 21 was sent down from Cambridge and spent the last 13 years of his life in an asylum, dying at 1799. John Howard worshipped at the Independent Chapel where John Bunyan had preached and presented a new pulpit in 1770. He also gave £200 towards a building which became known as the Howard Meeting in Mill Street, Bedford. John Howard is best remembered for prison reform and for fighting for the humane treatment of prisoners. And this chapter of his life began in earnest in 1773 when he was 47, when he was appointed Sheriff of Bedfordshire. Part of his duty was to inspect Bedford Prison, which is where John Bunyan wrote Pilgrim's Progress. The jail comprised 2 dungeons, 11 feet underground, and there was a small exercise area shared by male and female prisoners. All prisoners, even those on remand, had to pay 15 shillings and fourpence to the jailer and 2 shillings to the turnkey before they could be released. So many prisoners remained locked up for want of this fee. Howard petitioned Parliament. They commended his humanity and zeal, and thus started the process of prison reform. He wrote The State of Prisons in 1777, exposing the cramped and filthy conditions, the chains and the vermin that he found in prisons throughout the UK. He also made urgent recommendations for reform. For the rest of his life, he visited prisons throughout Britain and Europe, producing detailed reports in a humanitarian effort to improve the lot of his fellow man. It was on a visit to a prison that is now in Ukraine, where he caught prison fever or typhus. He died in 1790, aged 63. A monument was built in Kirchen, near where he died, and later statues erected in Bedford and St. Paul's Cathedral. His influence was to clean up prisons, saving many lives, and move towards each prisoner having their own cell. Today, the Howard League in UK, the Howard Association in the USA, the John Howard Society in Canada, and the Howard League for Penal Reform in New Zealand continue his work in crime prevention and the humane treatment of prisoners.